Dear colleagues, I think it is a very interesting discussion today. Although we have different opinions on a number of issues, it is important to listen to arguments, and I really appreciate this discussion. I would start opening, but maybe afterwards I would ask my colleague, Mr. Reimer Björgi, to wrap up if there are some questions, since we are working together on this dossier, together with him, and he is a member of the Parliament who is very experienced in these particular matters. When we speak and when we listen to the arguments, and they go in a very clear line, there is an economic crisis, the economic crisis requires fiscal austerity, and the fiscal austerity requires cuts on national budgets, on European budgets. That's a model which is kind of presented without being discussed. And I would like to enter a little bit more into details to see whether this goes exactly that way. What is actually the European Union's budget? I would like to repeat some facts because they are very important. Sometimes we don't have enough information about the European budget. First, it's very different from the national budgets. The first characteristic is that it is 44 times lower than the bulk of the national budgets in the European Union. For the taxpayers in 2010, the contribution to the European budget costed a cup of coffee per day. 67 cents per day, sorry. In order to, this tax period, how many months workers are working in the member states in order to pay off the taxes. In different member states, it's until the summer, after the summer, etc., etc. In Europe, the labor force works until the 4th of January in order to pay the contribution to the European budget. So this is the magnitude of the European budget. We need to know that. When we put it together at the level with the national budgets and say, yes, let's cut everything. This is 44 times lower than the European budget, than the national budgets. Second, this is an investment budget. We have said that already. 94% of the European budget goes back to the member states. Only 6% is used for administration. Show me a national budget which has this characteristic. No way. That's not an administrative burden which is bringing to the European citizens. There is no deficit in the European budget. When we speak about fiscal consolidation at national level, we cannot speak about fiscal consolidation at European level because the European budget had never had deficits, and we don't need to consolidate it. Of course, the European budget needs to be changed. The Commission's proposal, if you look at that, it shows a decrease. In terms of efficiency, we can do many things of the European budget. A better balance, yes, we can do many things, and you are going to see plans around to further cut the administrative costs and increase the investment side of the European budget. Practically, the European investments that are made via the European budget represent net savings from the national budget. So we also have to see this link that whatever we invest through the European budget brings additional savings to the national budgets. And it is very important when we speak about economic governance, about fulfilling the six-pack criteria, etc., etc. Some colleagues were speaking this morning about the signals coming from the voters. Of course, we are looking at that and we are listening to that. We have the same voters, dear colleagues. The same people that voted for the national parliaments voted for the European Parliament. And they expect to have a coherent information and coherent policy from both institutions. So this is not a fight between the national and the European Parliament. The European Parliament wants more money and the national parliaments do not want. We have the same voters. And the voters ask when the national parliaments ratified the Lisbon Treaty, did they really mean it? Did they really mean that own resources is part of the Lisbon Treaty? The voters would ask the national parliaments, when you ratified the EU 2020 goals, did you really mean it? Did you really want it to achieve it? Or you make nice declarations on one side and on the other side you cut the budget and say, no way for that. Of course, we need efficiency, we need added value, we need a focused use for the European budget. Just two figures from the cohesion policy. because it is one of those which is very much debated. From the investments between 2000 and 2006, there is an increase of the GDP by 0.7% in 2009, and it's to go up to 4% increase because of the cohesion policy in EU 25 by 2020. Do we want to decrease that? Do we speak about how to increase the efficiency of the cohesion policy, or we want to have a clearly showing result policy which is increasing the GDP, the economic growth of the member states, being decreased? With what argument? We in the European Parliament, we are going to have a very, and we already started a very open and very wide discussion with the Council. We think that the European budget has to remain an instrument for growth and jobs and for things that national budgets cannot afford. It has to be an instrument for convergence of the economies. In terms of procedure, it has to be more flexible, the same way as you make more flexible the national budgets in times of austerities. In terms of size, what the Europeans suggest is a decrease of the budget, dear colleagues, in relative terms. And it has been mentioned already. Beginning of the 90s, the European budget, the payments were 1.18% of the European economy. Now, with the Commission's proposal, they go down to 0.95%, 94% even, 20% decrease of the national budget, of the European budget. At the same time, if you look at the national budgets, you're going to see a very huge increase of the national budgets, including in years of austerity. In 2011, 23 out of the 27 national budgets are increasing. In 2012, 24 out of 27 national budgets are increasing. And we keep speaking about decrease of the European budget. That means that we decrease and we shift powers from European to national level. But unfortunately, powers that cannot be fulfilled at national level. And we have to think about all these issues. Finally, the final word, after the ratification of the Lisbon Treaty, and it has been said, the Parliament has new functions. And we don't want to create crisis. I mean, the supply of crisis is high enough in Europe in these days. But we are going to use as Parliament all the powers, including not agreeing with a budget which cannot fulfill the political ambitions that have been declared by governments and approved by national parliaments, because that would lead to inconsistency. Thank you very much.